Hey, hey, hey everyone, it's August 16th, V here, and this day in history, August 16th, 1977, was the day that the world lost the greatest entertainer of all time, Elvis Presley. And most of you know I do a tribute every year, and I do one on his birthday as well, but this tribute is going to be a little bit different. This tribute is going to be the top 10 things that Elvis taught us, so stay tuned. The first thing that Elvis taught us was to be humble. And I know how that might sound because when people think of Elvis, they think of the jumpsuits with all the sparkles on them. They think of the jewelry and they think of the lifestyle. But Elvis truly was a humble person. Any of his friends can tell you that, and his fans as well. Humility is something we carry on the inside. At a concert, there's a very famous story. At a concert, there were these women that stood up with a sign, and they stood up when the sign said, "Elvis is the king." And Elvis, being the beautiful person that he is, stood up and he stopped everything and he thanked them. And he says, "Thank you." He says, "The thought is beautiful, dear, and I love you for it. But I haven't been caught up in this thing, and I can't accept this kingship thing, because to me there's only one, which is Christ." And I love that because he had it all. He had it all at this point in his life. He had it all. And it's so easy for people to get wrapped up in that and to be very arrogant and self-centered. And he was taking all that adoration and all that energy that was lifting him, and he was taking it away from himself, that energy and that attention away from himself, and drawing attention to God and saying, no, God is the king. Jesus Christ is the king, and to God be the glory. And I love that about him. And if anyone's ever listened to his gospel albums, he was all about that. In fact, after concerts, he would stay up very late at night and he would just sing gospel for hours and hours and hours. Whether he was at home or on the road, this is what he would do. He would sing gospel. And if you get a chance, go onto YouTube and listen to something as powerful and beautiful as "How Great Thou Art." That is humility, and that is straight from the heart. So the second thing Elvis taught us was to do something worth remembering. It's a picture I have on my wall downstairs, and it just helps me to remember that no matter what life throws my way, that I can take a moment, I can make it special, and I can take something that's boring or not interesting, and I can make it worth remembering. I want to talk about what Elvis did on a large scale. He did on a small scale as well, and touched many people personally, but I want to talk about what he did on a large scale. So Elvis rose from a life of basic poverty to become an international superstar, and almost single-handedly defined the American dream. And you stop and think about what people think of as the American dream, and he pretty much single-handedly defined that, or maybe just redefined it. But it's a pretty special thing. His unique style of hair, clothing, singing, and dancing was the birth of an ideology that it's okay to be different. And if people don't understand you, or if they judge you unfairly, to be true to yourself. And this resulted in a decided turn from the traditional music to a passionate, exciting new type of music, which was originally based off of swinging, what they called Negro spirituals, and they mixed that with rockabilly and love songs to become what we know as rock and roll. And this revolutionized the music industry. So it really became the birthplace of pretty much all modern music. So Elvis absolutely did something worth remembering. So the next thing that Elvis taught us to dance. Okay, I'm gonna try this. Let's see. So the fourth thing that Elvis taught us was how to be generous. What a lot of people don't know is that every year at Christmas time, Elvis spent around $100,000, and at that time it was a lot of money, right? On charitable donations. And a few of them were public, but actually most of them were private and done behind closed doors and out of the way of the public eye. The other things he did was he donated blood at a time where it wasn't popular, it wasn't the thing to do, but he donated blood. He participated in toy drives. He gave many, many different gifts, sometimes to the people that were closest to him, sometimes to complete strangers, and sometimes to people he heard of that were in need. He gave gifts of wheelchairs, horses, motorcycles, cars, jewelry. He even bought homes for those he loved. He gave money to those he cared about so that they could afford their own home. There's a record of him paying for a friend's wedding. He, at one point, gave $50,000 to Memphis to distribute to over 58 local charities. The governor of Tennessee, in October 29th, 1967, actually declared that Elvis Presley Day to honor him as a thank you for all his charitable donations. He joined the fight against polio, and he was often giving many, many donations to hospitals, and he also would go and visit children, and he was a type of person that there's many famous photos of him with children that are obviously either sick or handicapped, and there's some beautiful stories if you actually Google them online and find out about them and the story behind those pictures. So there's some beautiful things he did, and he was just really known both in the public and with his friends as being a man that was full of random acts of kindness. He was a man that he had come from poverty, and so when he got wealth, he didn't just accumulate it all for himself. He shared the wealth, and he always did the. So the next thing that Elvis Presley taught us was all about values. And it's not that he was some kind of a superhuman that didn't make mistakes. He made those mistakes, some of them in public, some of them in private. But he really struggled over those, and he's human. He spent a lot of time in prayer and examining his life and what to do and the mistakes he made. And he said two things that really have stuck with me over the years. The first one was, when things go wrong, don't go with them. And it's simple, but it's poignant. And it's something I tell myself to this day, or I tell my kids too. And I love it. It sticks with me. The second thing is a really beautiful analogy, and I wanted to share it with you. It says, values are like fingerprints. No one's are the same, but you leave them all over everything you do. And it couldn't be more true. So, what was the next thing Elvis taught us how to do? Elvis taught us how to kiss. In the 1964 movie Kissin' Cousins, Elvis sang a song called Tender Feeling, and the words in it, I'll never forget. I remember hearing for the first time as a child, and I will never forget it. And it said, somehow I knew from the moment our lips first met that you'd be the girl I could never forget. And those words stuck with me, as they did with many other young men and women, and it reinforced the idea that if you're going to kiss someone, let's make it unforgettable. Elvis Presley also taught us about the dangers of judging others. Inside the back cover of his Bible, I'm not sure where he got this, if he made it up or if he read it somewhere and wrote it down, but he had written, "To judge a man by his weakest link or deed is like judging the ocean by just one wave." And it couldn't be more true. Very, very thought-provoking, and I love how that was worded, and I love that he kept that in his Bible. Another thing that Elvis taught us was all about living our dreams, and he showed that through his examples of his life, but also through his words. In one of his very famous speeches, he talks about how he grew up. And when he grew up, he would read comic books and watch movies and stuff. And he, at the time, was that hero of the movie, or he was that hero of the comic book. But then all those things had come true many times over in his life, and through the movies and through all the work that he did, and that he was really blessed to have those things come true. And so I think that's just a really good thing for us to hold on to and keep with us. Even if you look at his jumpsuits and the costumes he wore, everything had a meaning. Nothing was meaningless with Elvis. The symbols, the styles of the things, the fact that he used karate. He was very into karate, and so even on stage, some of his dance moves were actually karate moves, and he was all energy. And his jumpsuits, you know, the wide belt that he had on the jumpsuits, they were representing the big award belts that he used to watch on TV in these sports things like in wrestling and such. And the capes that he had as part of his jumpsuits, those were superhero capes from his childhood. So he really, everything had meaning, and he really embraced who he was and what his loves were, and he incorporated that into his career and into his image and his persona, and he was true to himself, and I really love that. Another thing that Elvis taught us was something that was really important in his life and in life in general. He taught us the importance of a song and music. Another very famous quote that he had, and maybe you've heard it before, was when he said, "I learned very early in life that without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, the road would never bend. Without a song." And it's so true. I always loved those things on Facebook that you see where it says, you know, my playlist is the story of my life. You know, those little memes and all that. And it's so true. And music is so therapeutic and so healing, and it can take us and really help us escape from some of the darkest times in our life, and it can give us strength. And you know, it always, there's that other meme too that says, if you want to know a woman's heart, look at her playlist. So, and the final thing that Elvis taught us was something he carried inside. It was his love. Whether we were talking about family or friends, people in the street, complete strangers, people in the hospital, those less fortunate than him, and of course, his fans all over the world. Elvis taught us to love, and to love tenderly. And he left us with this song. Won't you love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will. I hope you've enjoyed the top 10 lessons that Elvis taught us. And I hope you remember him, not just this day, but every day. And that you carry those lessons inside. And to Elvis, I want to say, this voice can't stop singing, these hips can't stop shaking, this heart can't stop hoping. Thank you for the music. Thank you. Thank you very much.